Let's do this ArcGIS. Let's try one of these pipelines here. So I go from a flight line, we don't really have a flight line, we just have a single file, to a CHM. And in this case, you select the input folder, which would in this case be this one, and I say add.
You got to click just on the.
Oh yeah, right. I keep on getting confused. I'm not an ArcGIS user, as you can tell. So it will now use all the LAS files in that folder for doing the operation. It's important, therefore, that I make sure I only have one LAS file in there. So I rename this to something else, so it doesn't use that, because I only want to run on the original file. And then I specify the output file, and I want a TIFF, so I say chm.tiff. There we go. And I need to give it an empty directory. So for this, I just create one. Chicken poop. This really tells you it's not an important directory. Oops. And there we go. And this is now basically, if you don't want to know what's happening behind the scene, you use the ArcGIS toolbox, where if you have a 2 or 3 guys at your organization that know LAStools, they can basically write these toolboxes and do exactly what you need to do, and then the users only see that front end. But behind the scenes, you see, it does all these checks, and then it creates these command lines. The tiling, of course, made no sense here, because it was just a very little bit of data. This can handle an entire folder full of data, gigabytes of data. So it tiled, but of course it just created one tile, and now it runs from the temporary directory, and you see it's called chicken poop. It runs last ground. We just ran last ground through the GUI. It basically runs exactly the same thing right now here again, but this time it's a tile, and it has this temporary name. But you see, it also uses this ODix functionality. So exactly what you saw in the GUI is also used behind the scenes, except it's going to use more than one thing. Right now it uses last height, and this will normalize the LiDAR file, because we want to create CHMs, and by normalizing LiDAR files to set the ground points to 0 and all the other elevations relative to the ground points, you sort of get what people usually call a normalized LiDAR. And from that, I now automatically compute the CHMs. So this is a completely different way of using LAStools through something that somebody created. In this case, it was me, but anybody could create these kind of dedicated LAStools toolboxes by following the examples, because it's all there in you have the scripts, so you can just follow the examples and modify them. That's how I started. I looked at some of the scripts for other tools that people had written, and I modified them to do it for LAStools. And well, we can just leave that running, and it will eventually create the pit-free CHM.